What is up, everybody? This is Recap Rewind. I'm J-Lag.
And I'm NB.
And this episode is recapping and reviewing Riverdale Season 7, Episode 5, and it's called Chapter 122, Tales in a Jugular Vein.
And don't forget, guys, stick around for the ending of the podcast because we're going to go through our recap roundups, our best moments, our best lines. Hopefully this one isn't a 2-hour podcast like last week.
We're going to try
and we get to the end real quick.
Spin this one up. As always, to our continuing listeners and our brand new ones, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get into this episode, girl.
Let's do it. Mine, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
15 out of 10.
15 out of 10, girl.
It was so good.
All right, work.
It was definitely, we took a little break from the main storyline, but stylistically, cinematically, it was 15 out of 10. It was so freaking well done. I love the little comic book graphics. Loved it. Loved it all.
I don't know if you were a big fan of it, but when I was growing up in the 90s, there was this show called Tales from the Crypt Keeper.
Okay.
And so it's like a specific bite off of that. There was a cartoon of it that was like the kid version of it, but I would stay up late at night and watch like the really rated R ones. And I'll mention one of the stories because it's almost exactly like the last love triangle one.
Okay.
But it's
because
like exactly the same thing.
J-Lag, do you remember that show Freaky Stories?
Yes,
when we were growing up,
it happened to a friend of mine.
Yes,
like that vibe. Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys will know because it was a Canadian show, but like every episode ended with like it happened to a friend of mine. The beehive story was from that it was exactly that episode. So
it's like those urban legendy storylines. Yeah.
How did you feel about that though?
I loved it. I thought it was so nostalgic. I think that it's a tap to like a certain group of people who really loved that fandom,
that genre.
And that genre. I love the way that they broke it down. I feel like it is kind of reminiscent of like what they were trying to do a few times in the beginning of the series. We talked about it like the Halloween episode where it was like isolated, not like related at all to the main storyline. And it just plays out. But the way that they did this, to your point, was really highly stylized. Very, like I said, very like referring almost specifically to like even all the way to like calling the main narrator the keykeeper. The crypt keeper was the one who was narrating all the stories. So like very, very specifically like biting off of that concept, but like very well done in like a Riverdale fashion. One thing I do want to mention right off the top, and let me know what you think. If they were to do a reboot of Riverdale, and I think it's because I've also been watching White Lotus, and then watching this episode, wouldn't it be cool if Riverdale, because it's based on comics, that they just did every season by an anthology?
100%.
Every season would have been isolated. Like, let's say season 1 of Riverdale, it ends off with like, this happy story, everybody's happy, but then it just ends. Like, they always left us with a cliffhanger at the end of every season, but if they removed the cliffhanger, then that could have been a fully encapsulated story of the death of Jason Blossom and like the corruption at what it was.
But
I think the one thing that I will say is I've been watching back like the last couple episodes with my husband and watching this season and seeing how they're treating this like 1950s world with like a mixed match of all these different characters, like getting to date each other and hang out with each other. Like we have drawn, like that is something that we would have never gotten until a time jump in like season 7 that makes absolutely no sense to the rest of the series. But like if they did it in an anthology, each volume would have like a new pairing, and like let's say like in this like pairing, like Ethel Muggs and Jughead are like they're following their story. Like the storylines would be tighter, they'd be able to tell more story, and then they can reset by the end of the season. Anyway, if I were to redo the show, that's what I just like I was inspired by like what I've been watching recently, and it's like anyway.
I think that idea could have definitely worked. The only thing I don't like about that is that emotionally everything gets reset, and so there's no emotional investment throughout like the 7 seasons of the show because you're just hitting reset every year,
right?
But if there could be a way where they could use the comic books as sort of like this theme every season,
it's like
and
a
maybe
perfect
they
way
were
to use
doing
it.
that, like the tree monsters and like the gargoyle, like it's like it is
That's what I
very
mean.
comic booky, but it didn't hit. Like it just didn't like.
And I think to your point, and like having these characters like continue this story, you're just like, why is Alice doing this in this season? Like she was so
Yeah, you're
different in season
right.
2. You know what I mean? Like it changes the consistency
Yeah.
and the continuity of some of the characters. And I agree, like maybe there's not that emotional connection, but like you're still following the actors. They get to spread their wings and try something different
I
every
guess.
season.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. It's not
Yeah.
what
No, it's
it's
a
not the
good
case
point.
anyway.
It's a good point. And I think a lot of shows are doing that now, like especially now. We know with
Yeah.
AHS, it's kind of like that
HS.
kind of really started it all for the
Right.
anthology like movement. But yeah, I'd be down.
Like encapsulating something tight, like that you feel
Yeah.
like you finish that story and you're like, cool, next season's gonna be something new and
Yeah.
cool. They
New and
always brought
fresh.
something
Yeah.
new and cool every season
They
anyway, but it
did.
just followed the same characters and their development. But like we even talked about like season 6, like where was the character development, y'all? Like everybody got
Yeah.
traumatized and that was the end of it. Like
Yeah.
Veronica still sucked by the end of season 6.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
that's the side thing. Let's get into this episode. We're so
Let's do
excited
it.
to talk about it. Right off the top, Clifford Blossom is having a secret meeting with the principal and the psychologist, Mr. Werthers, or Dr. Werthers, and it seems he's just trying to get a handle on what happened with the murder. Like, how do we make sure that this is like old news? Like, let's not like talk about this anymore. And the psychologist says, you know, or sorry, Clifford is asking, you know, is Ethel saying anything more about this milkman murder situation? Like, what's the deal? He really wants to keep things under wraps.
Yeah.
My question to you is, do you think that he is involved in the murders of this?
I don't know. Like this
them?
scene was so shady to me, but I couldn't put my finger
Like
on like
place.
what it was.
Yeah, same. I wasn't sure like what we were supposed to take away from it. That being said, in season 1, Clifford was the killer.
He
Like
was.
he killed his son.
Yeah.
So like maybe they are trying to make that tie in, like keeping him under wraps, protecting each other, whatever. So he asked if Ethel's talking. No, there's like a vow of silence at the Sisters of Quiet Mercy, so she's not saying anything anymore. And the psychologist basically concludes that comics are like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, like the
He's
devil.
like, they're the reason why that everybody's like, you know, doing all these bad things, and we need to find a way to get rid of them. And he has an idea to get rid of them. Okay, cool. Go write your fucking article. So we don't find out about that until a little bit later. Then it cuts to Jughead arriving at Pep Comics, and his boss is like swamped. Everybody's off, and like he doesn't have enough writers. He's got to write like 4 stories in one day. And Jughead's like, oh, I can do it. Like, would you want me to help out? And he's like, okay, here are like the stories. Here's the idea. Go run. Then he goes and talks to like one of the, I guess like one of the artists, and he's like, these are so like old school, like they're all the same, like it's like the same thing over and over again, like, same theme. And then he says, maybe I can do something on high school, like maybe like I can focus on high school, and that's very different from this comic book audience,
right?
Do you feel like this is starting to slowly move into this Jughead creating like
a little bit
the Archie comics?
Definitely. And I felt like even him saying that was like us for 7 years being like, more high school. We want more high school. Like, let's go back to high school. So I just found it kind of funny that he said that. And I'm like, I feel like it's the writers like nodding to like us as the fans being like, okay, you're going to get more high school. Like, here it comes. Like, you know.
I mean, he still wants to do horror. So he's like, let me call it House Room of Horror. So like, this is like almost a transitional.
I loved it.
Feels like it's like the transitional period. But yeah. Anyway. Then it cuts to Veronica going to visit Jughead at home, who's like now tapping away.
She's like, hey boo, you haven't called me in like one night. Like, what are you doing?
I just did up your entire place, and like you don't like you just ghosted me. So she wants to go to the movies. He's like, sorry, I gotta write these stories. And then so like
sorry, J-Lag, did you Google that movie? Because I totally forgot to Google it, because I feel like there must be a hint as to what that movie was.
What was
oh
it
god, I wish
again?
I Googled it. It was like
it was
Depravado or something. Like it was, and it wasn't an English film because she's like, there's captions.
Right, it's like a French film or something. Like it showed up or something. Yeah. And I don't know.
Sorry, guys. I'm gonna leave a comment after. We'll do research because I feel like whatever happens in that movie might be reminiscent of what transpires in the season, or maybe just as because you know they do that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah,
like,
they like
they'll leave like a little like
they drop those little references for sure. So anyway, Veronica's like, okay, well, like tell me the stories. Like, what are you thinking of? Like, maybe I can help you out. So he's like, I'm thinking of like this narrator called the key keeper, and he's the janitor of the school. And he like shows the picture, and
Yeah,
it's
he
like a
has
guy
like bad
literally holding
teeth.
keys,
Like,
bad teeth. I mean, he looks way better than the crypt keeper. The crypt keeper literally was just bones. Like he was
a
terrifying.
skeleton.
Skeleton, yeah.
They didn't have the CGI budget for that.
No, but actually it was like more terrifying because of that. It was like
He was
really, really good
scary.
makeup. I still don't know
Yeah.
how they did it. I think it was a robot, but anyway, really cool. Um, so he starts off with story one, and it's called Keep Your Head in the Game. We like jump right into it. And it's the story of the basketball team, and they're throwing all these baskets, they're playing and they're practicing, and Dilton Doily is really bad at basketball.
Yeah.
Like he cannot, like you could be like a foot away from it and he cannot throw that damn basket into the the basketball into the basket. So the whole team gets punished. They have to do laps while he's like throwing the ball. After practice, Julian decides to bully him, and like everybody else teams up and they throw Dilton in a locker for the night. And Dilton goes crazy because he's claustrophobic.
Yeah. Like I thought he was gonna die, but instead he has like a psychotic break and he ends up going crazy. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a bit more sense. Yeah.
All right, we could go that way too. So he ends up having the psychotic break because he's been there all night. The poor janitor like opens up the door. He's like, he runs outside. He grabs the axe that's like sitting there, like the emergency fire alarm axe, and then he goes back into the locker and waits for his team.
I was like, yo, this guy's deep in his plan. Like, I thought he was gonna go like rampage like around the school, but like he goes back into like the thing and like waits.
He spent like 8 hours being like, I'm going, this is how I'm gonna do it. So he went back into the locker, and then the next shot that we see is he's playing basketball, but he's like zoned out, and he keeps saying like, keep your head in the game, keep your head in the game.
I was like, ooh, someone's about to lose a head.
Yeah, and he's like covered in blood, and the coach is like, yo, what's going on? And he's like, keep your head in the game. And it's like Julian's bloody beheaded head, and all the bodies are lined up. Like it's a very like cinematic scene. Like not cinematic, but like visual scene where you see like the bodies sitting up, and like the balls are mixed up with the basketballs and the heads. It was cool. And then that's the end of that story. So like really quick, boom, boom, boom.
I forgot. Pieces. Like at the end, I was like, "Oh, that was a good 3," and then I'm like, "Oh wait, there was 4," because this one happens like really quickly.
It happens before they even cut to like the Riverdale logo. Like this was like right at the top. So I was really excited to see them jump right into it. I mean, 4 stories and doing what they did was 100%. Very ambitious. So
and they did it. Yeah.
They did the damn thing.
Yeah.
Then it kind of cuts. So every single time that it ends, it cuts back to Jughead and Veronica kind of like recapping it and talking about like what the thought is around it. So Jughead says, you know, people who break the rules, who are cruel to people, they get punished. And then he says something about lustful sex and people getting punished for lustful sex. And I don't know if you noticed, but Veronica's like, lustful sex.
She was like, that's not that bad. Like, that's okay. But he said something funny. He was like, aren't comic books a moral lesson? Like, like each book, each story can be a moral lesson in terms of like what you should be doing and like what's good and what's bad. Right. So it's interesting that he's taking it from that perspective, and the old guys in the beginning are like, the comic books are evil. They're like the worst. They're the worst. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, it's like the old school mentality, right? Like, this is destroying, and then they're like, no, you have to like read into the message, like read a damn book.
Yeah, exactly.
So anyway, that kind of ends. She like makes a little note, but I don't even think he notices. Like, I don't think he pays attention to the fact that she's like,
he's so sex. Like in his world. Like he's like, really typing. He doesn't get the hint.
I was like, Veronica, she's hot. She's like right in front of you.
She like, literally is here waiting for you to like
like go into those like Egyptian cotton bed sheets that she bought you.
Use those fingers for something else, boy.
Ooh, girl. Anyways, that cuts to the second story, and it's called Love You to Pieces. And it's Archie arriving at Thornhill. It's raining outside. Nana, we get Nana. Nana comes in for season 7. Aww. Girl, I missed her. So she came in. She answers the door. He says he got a flat tire and it's raining outside, and he just needs a place to sleep before he can go and talk to the garage the next morning. And Nana's like, okay, come on
in. Sleep here, child.
Come sit in here. So he's chilling with her, drinking tea, and Nana says, you can stay here, but there's one major ground rule. The ground rule is when you go to bed, you must close your door and lock your
Lock it.
door. Um,
And
but
he also sees like Cheryl's painting like on the
yes,
wall. And
yes.
Archie in this episode is like hornified. Archie.
Horny,
it's so
horny.
funny to see. And he's
He's
like,
horny.
oh, he's like, who's that? And she's
Every
like, that's my
second.
granddaughter. And he's like, oh my God. Like he was like
wow,
so horny for her, like right from the start.
I loved it. It was so funny to watch him this episode. He did such a good job.
Such a good job.
So so Nana does add this little thing in. She goes, well, my granddaughter lives in this house and she has a tendency of like sneaking in people's bedrooms and like having sex with them.
Yeah, like BTW, she's a nymphomaniac, and that might make you a little uncomfortable. And Archie's like, no, I'm ready to go to sleep. He's like, I'm down.
Okay, cool, got it. And like then it shows like Archie closing the door and like he
so lit.
He like keeps it ajar, which I thought was hilarious. And what happens next? So then she comes into the room while he's sleeping, but all you're seeing is like shadows. Like you're not seeing her face, you're not seeing anything. And he's like, oh, do you want me to like turn a light on? She's like, no, let's just enjoy the night together. So she hooks up with him. He wakes up nice and like pleasured.
Definitely pleasured. His face was like,
he's like, hello.
Yeah. He's like, yeah. I literally thought Nana was like in her body.
Oh my God.
I thought it was like Nana wanting the tea.
One. Yeah,
that's what I thought, because she was kind of like sexual. So she's like, come on in. Like, I was like, oh my God, is she gonna like go into Cheryl's body and like fuck Archie? Like I thought that's where it was going.
And I'm surprised with this story they didn't go a little magical with it, because like the Blossoms are always like weird and magical.
That's why it could have worked, I feel like, right?
Yeah, for sure. Like, or she was like a ghost or something. Anyway, I didn't know where this was going.
That's what I thought.
It was really interesting. So the next day he walks out, he actually sees Cheryl's like Cheryl standing by a window, but she's wearing like a veil, and he doesn't like approach her or say hi. He just goes straight to the kitchen and like goes to sit down with Nana. Then he's talking to Nana. He's having breakfast. He's like, oh yeah, by the way, like I think I saw your granddaughter yesterday. And then she, like
last night,
he asks a few more questions, like what was she like what happened to her? And Nana's like, well, yeah, she was like a really sprightly woman. She was very like beautiful. And then she got leprosy, and she got really contagious, and he's like, oh, her skin started falling off, and
she's like, hopefully you guys didn't have sex last night.
She's like, he's like as he's like hearing the story, he's like, fuck. Yeah. Like he's so nervous about it. And then it turns out that so she's super contagious, and Archie's like, yeah, like I definitely am not immune to this. So he's like starting to freak out a little bit. And then she admits that Nana wanted to like give Cheryl the best life possible before she died of leprosy. Like, she's like, she's gonna eventually die, so like I'm hoping to like let her have a little bit more fun. And he's like, what do you mean by that? And she goes, well, who do you think like put the nails on the road last night or whatever? And I was like, oh, Nana out here being setup. Like, she is setting people up. She is getting her daughter, her granddaughter, the D, like MVP for the episode.
She's looking out.
Yeah, she's looking out. She's like the real like wing woman of this episode. So when you hear that story, like Cheryl comes by and puts her hand on his shoulder, and like now you can see her hands like all like mangled and like wrinkly and gross. And then he turns up and her face is like all like mashed up.
Yeah,
she has leprosy. So and then that's how the episode, she got leprosy. So then that's how it all ends. And it
was insane.
It was crazy. I was like, whoa, this like took 7 left turns. Yes, I did not expect it. Like you were saying, I was thinking that it was gonna be like some sort of ghost story, but it ended up just being like a regular, like not regular,
like a nymphomaniac horror story.
But then I was also like, Archie, like, do you not like feel the body before you like do anything? Like, could you not feel the things happening last night? Like, I don't know. Anyways. So then it cuts back to Jughead and Veronica really quickly, And she's like, okay, so then what's the moral of this one? And he says, I guess it's like curiosity killed the cat. Like, you shouldn't, like, you know,
like he should have kept his door closed.
You should have locked your damn door, or else you like get your dick like fall off. Then then your dick will fall off. Then it cuts to the third story, and it's called The Beehive. And this one was, I felt so bad because right off the top he's like, Bland Betty. I was like, Bland Betty with a ponytail. I was like, damn.
I'm like, wow, so savage.
Some shade. So Betty, who I don't even know if I believe this story. Betty's so beautiful. I don't know how.
That's what I'm saying. Like they could have made her look a bit more like weird, because like she just looked the same and she looked beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Like
I was like, everybody's an idiot if they're not going for her. So anyway, she feels lonely. She feels like no one likes her. So then she goes to a salon for a new look.
Hairdo.
And she's talking to the hairdresser, and she's like, I feel unseen. I feel like I'm a ghost. And her hairstylist says, don't worry. I just came back from Europe from my honeymoon. It was amazing. And everybody's doing this brand new hairstyle called The Beehive.
So let me just quickly insert here that when I was, we must have been like maybe 12 or 13 when we were watching Freaky Stories, maybe even younger. And this freaking episode, the one where the woman gets a beehive hairdo and she's constantly like hairspraying it. The trauma that came after I watched this episode, you're spider like, trauma, hair trauma, hairspray trauma, like I don't know why. Like, I really don't know why I was so scarred from this. Like the way the spiders came out of her hair after, I was like traumatized, and I knew where this was going.
Like the worse than the way they showed it in this episode.
No, but like, you know, Gia, like we're young, so like in my mind at that time, like it's probably, if I watch it now, I'm like, oh my god, it was like one spider that came crawling out of her hair. But like,
no, I remember it very clearly.
Intense. Like, I don't know why I was so triggered by that. So this whole sequence, I was like, oh god, I know where this is going. Like, there's gonna be spiders
everywhere. As soon as like she went to bed and like it was like a spider web, I was like,
oh that's what I was like, oh god, no.
This is it. So anyway, the hairstylist does say you can have this beehive. It's a cool new look. She gets this beehive, but you can never ever wash your hair.
She's like, you have not even once a week.
She's like, my mommy told me that I had to do it that way. And she's like, well,
no, honey, you're never gonna wash your hair.
Tell your mom to off, because I know my shit.
I just want to say really quickly here, the set design of this episode was absolutely stunning. Like their team, colorful. And when I say 15 out of 10, like this is what I mean. Like every facet of the production, like crew, is on top game right now. Like the way the salon looked, the pink and the hairsprays in the back, like that takes a lot of time and work and money. Like it doesn't, you know, they didn't cheap out on this episode, and like you can see it, and truly I really do appreciate it. Like it was a beautiful episode.
So well done. No, I totally agree. And I think that like, even though we're in the 50s in this particular season, the way that they were able to like stylize it even more for the fact that it was a comic book story made it so much more like surreal, like almost Tim Burton-y.
Like on a budget, like Wish version, but like it was like that.
the Tim Burton dupe version. No, but it's still so really well done. Good. So she's like, you have to use this spray, and that's it. That's all you need to like clean your hair. And so she shows up with this beehive the next morning. Everybody's looking at her. The girls are jealous.
Gina, you look good. And she's just like,
she's like, she's just like going around like freaking spraying her hair like every 5 seconds. Even Veronica and Cheryl like tease her in the bathroom. She's like, whatever.
Like that's not gonna like help you with your thing. Like, don't even try.
Like, you're still basic Betty. Like you're still bland Betty with a ponytail. And she's like, whatever, girls. And all the boys are like asking her out, and she just like has a great time like that day. She's like, this is the best decision I ever made in my life. She goes to sleep, and then you see like a web shadow, like we mentioned, behind her. And then it's like, little did she know that this would be like the worst thing that she ever did. Like bad choices. And then it cuts to Pop's diner, and Archie and Betty are on a date.
So cute.
Even though it was for like 5 seconds. He's like, what a swell night, girl. Like, he was like so cute with her.
He's like, I love your new hair.
Yeah, he was like, your hair is very fine. And then he's like, let's go listen to that. Like, let's go dancing.
Oh
So they
my
go
god,
say,
his
actually,
dancing, I could have died. It was
before we
so
get to the
cute.
dancing, can we just quickly shout out to Pop, mother effing Pop, who is the MVP for gassing up Betty? Because at
What
one
did he
point he was like,
do?
he said he like brings her like the food, and Archie goes, "Doesn't she look great tonight?" And then like, or isn't she just swell tonight or something like that? And Pop is like, "She's always been swell." Like, there's
Oh,
this
I
like
didn't
little
remember
moment where he
that.
says like, "No, like, how are you? Why do you mean just tonight? She's always
Oh,
such a good
oh my
person."
god,
So I was
Pop.
like, it's almost like that like little tiny moment that like looks don't matter. You're only paying attention to her now because she likes.
100%.
Anyway, I just thought
Yeah.
it was cute that
Oh, I
Pop
didn't
got
even
that line.
yeah.
It was so cute.
Yeah.
So shout out to Pop. But anyway, so they go start dancing. Everybody's having a great time, and
The
then
way KJ is
he's like,
moving. He's so cute.
So they're all dancing, and then she starts feeling sick. She feels lightheaded, and then she falls to the floor, starts foaming at the mouth, and
And
she
she's
just
like
like
dead.
drops dead. Like
Yeah.
there's no like go to the hospital. Like she
Yeah.
just dies like immediately. Um, then her body's at the coroner's office. Shout out to our girl
Our guy.
Macy, No Context Riverdale. She got her view for
She got her
Dr. Curto
mans.
Jr. comes in, and he zing 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 cuts her
He zing
beehive
zings.
off.
Yep.
And spiders come out of her
He's
head.
like, oh no.
Even he was like,
this.
not the spiders. He's like, I watch freaky stories too. Like, I am traumatized. I cannot deal with this shit. Like, no way, man. So he runs out of the room. You find out later, like post-mortem, that like a black widow got into her beehive and like laid eggs and then ate into her brain. Like,
can
the
you
end.
imagine? Oh my god.
Like, what a weird story, but like to your point, like having this like urban legend,
Yeah, like
kind of like traumatizing urban legend from our childhood, like coming into our now adulthood is
I was like, I thought I was done with this story. Okay, 18 years ago I promised myself I would never relive this story, and now I'm watching Riverdale and it's like,
here it is right in your face. So this one is so anyway, so that finishes, cuts back to Jughead and Veronica talking. She starts to feel like a little upset. You can tell that she's starting to get like a little annoyed by these stories. Like at this point in time, she's like, okay, so like, what are you trying to say? Like, beauty kills? Like, I'm a pretty girl. Like, what do you mean? Like, I can't look pretty?
What are you really trying to say, Jughead?
What are you trying to say in this comic,
He's like,
girl?
Nothing. I'm just like writing.
He's like, it's just a comment, girl. Calm down. And then she says, also, you're already 3 stories in and you haven't done 1 story about me. So like, what the F? Like,
yeah, like, where am I?
So he's like, girl, don't you worry. I got the story right here for you in this moment right now. Okay. Love triangle. Ready for this love triangle? Let's go.
Let's go.
Story number 4, final story. It's called My Better Half. Like I said in Tales from the Crypt, there's an episode I remember to this day called, I was like, wait for it, called Split Personality.
Mm-hmm.
It has Danny DeVito as because they always had like guest celebrities in the episodes. They were the original anthology stories, actually. But he plays this guy who like falls in love with this girl. Turns out she has a twin sister. The twins start dating him like simultaneously. And then at the very end, they slice him down the middle. And like the last shot is like Danny DeVito like being held by one of them, like one half of him is being held by one of them, and then the other half is being held by the other. It was like almost exactly this. So like shout out to RAS for like finding all these references and the writers for finding all these references, because it like literally nostalgia. I was like, I want to watch that episode again.
Now the
so
real
check it out if
question
you can
is,
find it.
Which half do you want to be stuck with?
Ooh, this one they cut him like literally top and bottom, but like in the original,
no,
was,
like
cut,
do you want his penis or do you want his mouth? Which one?
Mouth. I mean, like, what are you doing with the torso? Like, really? Like,
what do you do?
You could do more with the hands. I don't know.
You could do more. I guess you have more options. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Because at the end I was like, oh, Betty got the better deal.
She got the bottom half. Yeah, but he's like rigor mortis. Like, I don't know if he rigor mortis the right way, then like maybe
he can't even move.
But he can't. She has like a foot fetish. She's like,
that's funny.
Anyway, so we already told the whole
Yeah.
story, but essentially Archie wants to date both Veronica and Betty. This was cute because
No,
it is it's
totally.
the twist on the classic love story that we see in the comics. I
That
love that they
RIS
did it with
never
this.
did, right?
He never did. He never wanted to do it. So the fact that he's doing it for this because it's like a fiction of, I think it worked really, really well, and it was
It
really fun
did.
to watch
And it
them.
was really funny because Archie definitely is an exaggerated version of himself. Like, again, like we said,
Right.
he's this hornified teenager. He has no guilt in terms of what he's doing. So he's not really our regular Archie where he's really balancing and his heart's kind of in these two. No, like his
Yeah.
peen is in these two places.
Yeah.
Like
He's
he's
like, I
just
am a
thinking
teenage
about that.
boy. I
Totally.
will
And
F
he's
whatever I
playing
see.
them. Like he has no guilt about it
Yeah.
whatsoever. So
In
yeah, it was really
fact,
fun to
he
watch.
doesn't even lie to them. He tells them straight up, girl, I'm dating
Yeah.
you and I'm dating you. I was like, what?
And they
This
know it.
confidence. Yeah.
Like they know that they're being played.
Yeah, the confidence of this man, ridiculous. And it was really cool because they did like a split screen when they're on a
Oh
date.
my God, I
love
love
the way that they
those.
cut this. It was so well done. Because the one thing that he does say, because at one point they start arguing, like, because he's like, Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, he gets Betty. Tuesdays, Thursdays,
Wednesdays, Fridays,
it's
whatever.
whatever. Saturdays, it's Veronica. And then Sundays, he sleeps and he drinks lots and lots of coffee. Like that's like his plan.
Yeah.
Which I thought was freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
And then they start arguing at this one date, and he like whispers to both of them at the same time in a split screen.
This
He
moment
goes,
killed
let me
me.
let you in on a little secret.
And they're like, yeah.
You're my favorite. And I was like,
and I love the split screen, how they did it. Like I love, oh my God, it was so well done.
So good. It was so good. And then it cuts to Archie the next day talking to the basketball team. The basketball team's like, oh my God, like Julian's like,
bro, how do you do it?
Bro,
like two girls.
How do you like do it with two girls? And he's like, coffee and Sundays. You know what I mean? Am I right? Coffee and Sundays.
Anybody?
No. Okay, just me. Cool. So then, the problem was because Sundays were his day off.
Right.
Valentine's Day this year fell on a Sunday, so he has to decide who he's going to take out. So the girls are arguing back and forth in the bathroom. He's gonna take me. He's gonna take me. And Cheryl is like, he's playing you both. Like based on what you guys are saying, he's playing you both. And they're like, that rat Fink. That was like the line.
Well, because Veronica was like, well, I'm his favorite, so like he'll clearly take me in. But he's like, no, he told me I'm his favorite. And then Veronica's like, what the like he's telling us the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they go and approach him at his locker, and they're like, hey, right now you got to tell us who are you going to take to Valentine's Day, and also the person that you do not choose, you got to break up with him immediately. Yeah. And he's like, and considering Archie is like freaking an idiot,
he came correct. Smart. Archie came so correct that in that moment he like flipped it on them and made them feel guilty.
Yeah. So he goes, you know what? I'm not going with either of you. My mom, she
needs me.
She had her first one. My dad passed away. I need to take her out for her first Valentine's Day without my dad.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's so sweet of you.
Like,
Don't worry about it. We're not going to go out. And he's like, so just like clarifying, like you're not like leaving
like you're not leaving your house, like, right? Like on Sunday. If I was to go out, like you're not going to be there, like,
you're
right?
going to get Uber Eats and like stay at home, right? Yeah. And she's like, they're like, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Like already planning, like.
Also, yeah, like what an idiot. Like fucking Archie, like he's comes up with the smartest plan and then does the dumbest things.
And like, well, that was Cheryl. As if she's not gonna tell everyone that she went with Archie.
Ridiculous. So then it cuts to Pop's Diner. Turns out that V and B are going on their own like Galentine's date.
Yeah. It was so
super cute. And sure enough, Archie rolls in with freaking Cheryl, and they were like, that rat Fink.
Why do they keep calling him that? Is that
I guess that must be like a thing from the 50s. Like that rat Fink.
That rat Fink.
I don't know. It's an insult. That douchebag.
Yeah.
I guess that's what it was back then. So then Betty's like, I have a plan for this mother effer. Next morning, they approach Archie and they're like, oh, so like, how was your Valentine's Day with your mom? And they're not letting on at all. And Archie's like, yeah, it was really, really good. Like we just like stayed at home, whatever. Like it was really sad and stuff. And this part I love, like this is why I miss like V and B together, because the way they play this out was so freaking hilarious. Veronica and Betty are like, well, we had a thought, like maybe you can have us like at the same
Like, you don't even have to
time.
choose anymore. Like, you can have us
Like just
both.
have us both at the
Wouldn't that
same
be
exact time.
swell?
Don't you want that, Archie? And he's like
He's like,
already like erection, like he needs to go to the bathroom or whatever. So he's like, absolutely, like let's go. Like I can go, I know this place, let's go to Lover's Lane.
yeah.
And Betty's like, actually, I think we should go to shop class. Like we'll go after school.
And he's like, why the shop class, Betty? And she's like, because you can't hear anything. It's soundproof. He's like, oh.
He's like, yeah, it
freaked
was
out.
so freaking funny. He was like, oh. And then I think Veronica's like, we're going to be making lots and lots of noise. I was like, oh
they must have had so much fun filming this. Like, really.
Such a funny scene to watch. So then he shows up and there's literally like them and their freaking candles. Synthesizers, candles galore everywhere, all across the freaking room. They're laying on the floor and they're like, come lay with us, Archie. And
that moment when they said it at the same time was so creepy.
It's very like shining.
Like, come on vibes. In, Archie. Yeah.
Like definitely not gonna kill you right now. So then it cuts to as he's about to like get his clothes off and get ready, Veronica's like, why don't you drink your coffee? So then she gives him the coffee and he's like so excited. He actually even says like, I don't even think I'm gonna need the coffee tonight.
Yeah, girls. He's like, I'm good.
I'm ready to go. Like I am hornified. And he drinks the coffee anyway. And then he passes out. And then he wakes up and he's chained on the table. And they cut this mother effer in
They literally
half.
sawed him in half.
They're like,
and Betty was like,
yeah. She's like cutting it in half. And then like the zoom out was really cool. Like that final shot of them sitting on the couch. His first, like the top half is with Veronica and the bottom half is with Betty, and she's just like petting his leg.
Yeah, like she's doing
it was so well done,
so good, and it's just so entertaining. Like
so entertaining. Oh my god, fun to watch. Definitely check out that split personality episode if you can find it, because that is like the real. But this was a cool shout out to that episode. I thought it was so well done.
I mean, if you cut Danny DeVito in half, there's not much left there.
Girl, shade at Danny freaking DeVito. Then it cuts to Jughead and Veronica and the real, like back to the real.
Yeah.
And now she's like pissed. She's like at the tip of her like iceberg.
Sorry. So when we cut back and she sort of, you see her reaction. Did you know what she was going to get at?
I think so, and it's only because I feel like the last one she was getting annoyed, and I noticed that. I was like, okay, like maybe she's starting to get like a little annoyed by him. But she does kind of go in hard on him in this.
Moment. Yeah, I want to talk about that after. Yeah.
So she's like, I don't know if I like agree with your opinions on sexual politics. You're making it seem like girls are just like these sex crazed, shallow, crazy killers. And then he
even says, he's like, but the guys were in it too. The guys do it too. So like,
and then she's like, so you agree? You're demonizing women.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa. And he's like, yo, it's just a comic. I don't understand. But I mean, what did you think of this moment? I do agree with her to a degree, because he starts off talking about like how comics are like the moral compass of this and whatever. He could have easily said, like, considering he's like a good book reader, he could have been like, yeah, I'm just like following what society is right now. This is just like how things are. I don't know. I feel like he could have talked his way out of this one.
I don't think there was a really big deal. Like his first story was all centered around guys. Like he had a mix of different like elements to these stories.
Right.
If they were all one-sided, like if they were all like female driven and like the female was the villain and, you know, demonized, like, okay, yeah, that'd be a pattern. But like, I just didn't get that sense. Like,
I think it was more just like him positioning like even Betty in the Beehive story as like this like vapid girl who just like, wanted to look pretty. And then this one is like two girls running after the one guy. Like she just didn't like the tropes that he was like leaning into.
I just didn't buy it.
I get what he's saying, but I didn't buy the reasoning around the fact that like they couldn't have a extended conversation about this, but
100%.
I do understand why they did it, because like they want to break up
You
Veronica.
also have to understand that like this is the 50s, right? Like if Veronica and Jughead were who they were in the current times and he wrote these stories, I'd be like, yeah, what the hell's wrong with you? Like start like think about something different. But they're still in the 50s where like there really isn't this woke culture, and like if she went down the street and asked another guy to write a story, like he'd probably write the same shit. So like what does she expect from a teenage boy who like hasn't had these huge life experiences like either? Like I don't know. I just felt like her expectation was so like, I'm like, whoa, like.
I also just, yeah, I just think that like he shouldn't have just used the it's just a comic book excuse, because like I said, like he's obviously well read. He's watched a lot of movies that she's watched. They have like very like the thing that connected them was the fact that they have like refined 100%. Similar tastes. So the fact that she's like, I don't agree with your sexual politics. Like when did he ever show you that he's not
exactly
like that person? Like if he was sitting there at the Pembroke the episode before and was like, where's my breakfast, then I would be like, okay, but like he cooked for 100%. You, so it's 100%. Kind of a like it's a bit of a floppy.
She went from like 0 to 100
yeah,
like,
but also like the writers should have like done something different, I think, like to break them up. Like the end goal was to break them up by the end of the episode, which they ended up doing.
Which I wasn't down for, honestly. Like I was pretty upset.
Because that's what I mean, it just didn't feel genuine. It didn't feel like honest to what we've been watching for the past couple episodes.
She gets up and she's like, you know what, I'm gonna go. And he's like, why don't we go out? Like he's like, let's go to the last showing, like I'll take you, and it's on me. He even said that, like he was like, let's go, it's okay. She's like, no, like I want to go home now, I'm done. She's like, and he's tired. Like, what's wrong? He's like, I feel like something's off. And she's like, no, like we're good. She's like, I just want to go home and sleep. And then that was it. And like by the next scene, he's like, clearly everything was like, she doesn't even like talk to him about it or like say anything. I just felt like they rushed it a lot. Like
for sure they rushed it. I was really disappointed because like we got so excited for the last 2 episodes
so much.
And you know, I guess I know that they write these things before they see the reception of the fandom, but like you can only safely assume that we would have really enjoyed watching them together.
She was fine playing Julian and Archie and like being with Julian because he's rich and wealthy, and so like you're gonna tell me you're that girl, but then you're also gonna be this girl. He's writing a story. You also liked hanging out with him. This is what like threw you over the edge. It just didn't.
Like I said, like I just feel like they could have like talked it out differently, or like they could have found another reason that they didn't connect, because I just feel like them saying that they're connected because they have like the same level of intellect, and then them saying that they have like differences on sexual politics, like
to me
very like loose. But I will say Veronica does say something in the beginning of the episode, which is actually my best line, where she basically is like, he's like, girls will do anything to like be interested in people, like into boys.
He does say that.
And then she's like, yeah, like pretending to be interested in comics. Like
yes. Oh my god, that was such a good line.
You know what I mean? So like, is she just playing
and he
it with
didn't
him?
get it. He didn't get it.
Right. So
for me, what I felt at the end of all of this and why this wouldn't have worked was that he's just stuck in his stories. He's really stuck in his own bubble. He's stuck in his own world. That to me is a more viable reason as to why they would just never work. And she was like, you know what? He's like in his own fantasy world. Like, I can't deal with this. Yeah. Like, I'm leaving. And that to me made more sense than like what she really said.
Like, even if like by the end of it, he's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna finish these stories now, and then she just walks out instead of him being like, oh, you want to go to the movies?
Yeah, like he still wanted to go.
He could have been like, no, I gotta finish the story. Like, talk to you later. Like, good seeing you. Like, just dismissive, and then that would have made way more sense. Like, he's more into his work. He can't focus on a relationship, and that's why they break up. That is a perfectly
like he even offered to pay, bro. The guy has no money. He lives in a trailer, like streetcar.
Break, bro. Anyways, they could have done it differently.
I think they could have done it a little differently, especially the way they hyped it up last week. And we were all so excited.
Yeah.
For it to come crashing down this quickly, like in this way, I was just like,
yeah.
I wanted a bit more. Sure.
Raiders, come on.
Yeah.
It's always like 1 win, 2 wins, strike. Like destroy the whole story.
Yeah.
Anyways, so she leaves. That is done. Veronica is no more. Let us know in the comments below how you feel about them like kind of dissolving as fast as they did, and how they did, because clearly we are not happy about it. But then it shows like an article in the newspaper that was written by Dr. Werther's, the psychologist, about comics and how they're like the devil, and anyone that writes them or is associated to them need to be taken down. These comic book makers need to be taken down. And even like Clifford is like, well done on this editorial article that you wrote. But clearly like this is positioning some bad stuff that's about to happen. So anyway, cuts the like one of the final scenes. Jughead gets to Pep Comics. His boss is like, oh my god, I loved your stories, they were so good. And Jughead is like, oh my god, that's amazing, like I really needed a win, so I'm really happy to hear that. And he's like, oh yeah, like the girl that I was seeing is kind of like over me. And he's like, well, why don't I put your name in like on this thing as like one of the writers, like. And then Jughead was like so excited about it. He was like, wow, that's amazing, this is like such a great like first step, I can't wait to tell all my friends. And like that's how the episode ends. But then
even the guy says, he's like, this is more important than like girls, like no girl, no romance, no love story will ever be greater than your name being in print. And he was like, yeah. And so that also just again shows that his priorities is this. It's not really chasing girls and finding
like,
a love interest.
And like I said, like that could have been the only 100%. Reason why they broke up. And like, 100%. Leave it at that. Even the way, like you said, the way that it ends with him saying like, oh, like how excited he got about his name being in print.
Yeah.
Just goes to show like Jughead is like, you know, shallow with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the end, but then it shows like a kind of like narration where he's like, little did I know that this was going to be like the beginning of the end for me or whatever. And then it's like a split screen between him and like the freaking principal like psychologist. They all look the same, one of them, who's coming after him. So it didn't end like with like a high like what's gonna happen next, but overall what a great episode.
Good. Yeah,
so entertaining to watch. Love the format. Kudos to the entire group of people who worked on this. It was really well done.
Yeah, agreed.
Are we gonna get into our recap roundups in less than an hour?
Let's do it. What the F, guys? We have blown through this episode. This is crazy. I know they like the long episodes, but sometimes it's good to have a little mix of both, you know?
And also I just feel like this content was very like ingestible, quick, easy to watch. Like I was entertained like thoroughly from beginning to end. Like it didn't feel like it ever had like a break. Yes. And I know that every episode can be like that, but it was really fun to watch like a different pace of an episode. It was really fun.
Recap roundups.
Best moment. So it's so hard to find the roundups this episode because everything is so segmented.
Yeah.
But my best moment I think had to be the Betty, Archie, Veronica loves triangle story. That story was my favorite of the episode.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah.
My best moment is gonna go to Dr. Curdle Jr. cutting off the beehive, and it's because he like screamed. He was like, "Oh, not the spiders!" Like he like ran out like very like dramatic and hokey. I just thought it was a really funny moment to watch, and like shout out to Dr. Curdle Jr. for coming back to the show.
Macy, we need Macy's thoughts on this.
I know.
WTF moment.
Okay, my WTF moment was the old man taking the comics so seriously, and ultimately like how that is gonna tie into like the overarching, you know, storyline for the entire season. Like what are we looking at here? What's going on? Why is there a group of men like deciding on like what's happening in the town? Just kind of that just threw me off in the beginning. They kind of put that in there and I was just like, oh, but what does that all mean? So
for sure. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a really good question.
Also, I felt like we missed Tony in this episode. Like, we missed a lot of core characters. Like, even just seeing them, like Tony, sure, Kevin, and Clay. Like, it would have been nice to kind of play on those characters in one of the stories, but we never really got a chance to look at that. That's a really good point. Yeah, that's so true. Like, they could have played with some new characters instead of like you brought Nana back, like, you know.
Yeah, like you could have played with Clay to see like how that worked out or played out.
A cool, fun way of like introducing Clay. Yeah.
Anyways, yeah, but that's a bummer. And I do like, that's the thing, like they use Tony for everything else. Like she could have had a fun yeah, she's like, you guys take this one, go back to the basic stories. My WTF moment is Veronica being over so soon. I was just really disappointed with how it was played out, like you meant, like we've already mentioned. So it's just a bummer.
It was a
I was so excited. I watched last week's episode with my husband yesterday, and he got so excited by the end of the episode when they kiss. He's like, oh my god. So now I'm gonna be very sad to watch this one.
Even when Jughead was like, even when she walked out that night, I was like, maybe they'll like work it out the next morning. He's like, and that was it the next morning. And I was like,
I know, like fucking death stares from freaking Veronica. I was like, damn, that was fast. Like, what a crappy way to end like a possible flame. But anyways, I guess it makes room for Reggie.
Yes, definitely.
We'll see.
Definitely. And I don't know how far they could have gone anyways. You know what I mean? Like, when do you wrap that up?
For sure. But like I said, they could have done it the way that we just said, with him just being like too wrapped up in his work, and then I would have been like,
falls off.
What a bummer. That sucks. But like, at least like they tried. You know what I mean?
It
just felt weird.
Yeah.
MVP.
Who's your MVP?
My MVP, it's so hard because I do think they were all amazing, but I really want to give it to Archie and KJ. Like, I keep choosing him because his acting has been outstanding this entire season.
For sure.
And he really is the core. Like, he holds everything together and does it really well.
Yeah.
And again, in this episode, like, he just made me so happy, like seeing him dance and like shake his hips. Like, he's just so fun to watch.
Yeah, he's really, really leaning into like this like fun comic booky,
lighthearted,
doing such a
Archie,
great job.
And I think he's really enjoying filming this season because you can see it. Like, he does look like he's having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and also like he gets the best storylines. He's literally like hornified all the time.
Yeah,
like, running after girls. Like, it's so fun to watch. Mine is also Archie for the same reason. Like, I thought he was great, lots of fun to watch, etc., etc.
Yeah.
LVP.
My LVP has to go to Veronica for just taking things way too seriously at the end, and just really hit me suddenly. Like, I don't know, I wasn't vibing with it. I think she took it a tad too seriously, especially knowing who Veronica is and like where she came from, you know.
Yeah, like,
she's not the most self-righteous person either, so like,
no, she's not an angel.
Yeah,
I know she's making changes. Like, by this episode, she's like,
you
know, whatever. But still, like, it's true. Like, she could have had a little bit more grace and had a conversation with him. She's also my LVP because I was just like, you suck, Veronica. Like, why were you cool for like 3 episodes and now you're like,
we'll see what happens.
Our boy.
Yeah.
The best line.
My best line is gonna go to Jughead, and it was like his ending with the Veronica, and he says, "And as easy as that, whatever soap bubble we had been in just burst. Boom. Tomorrow at school, things would be different. We'd no longer be the Marilyn Monroe and the Arthur Miller of Riverdale High. We'd pass each other in the hall, but she'd once again be the beautiful socialite, and I'd be the Melvin who writes comic books." And it made me so sad. That really made me really sad. Like, yeah, because she goes back to like, as if like she doesn't even recognize him, like as if he doesn't exist, you know. Like,
couldn't they just like be like acquaintances? Like,
well,
she's
that's
just
the thing.
Like,
I don't. Yeah, I don't. I think
God.
She's probably. Yeah, I thought that was a really beautiful way of like summarizing who they are and how it all ended.
For sure. Yeah, really well done. Good lines. My best line is between Veronica and Jughead when he says, "Girls will do just about anything to get a boy's attention." And then Veronica says, including fading interest in comics, apparently. And he's not even paying attention, which I thought was,
that was such a good line.
Again, like I said, could have totally been the foundation to why they break up. But anyways.
Yeah. Really quickly, we have our listener roundups. At Marina on Instagram, she says, best moment, Veronica walking away from that shit story. And when the episode ends, damn, Marina. WTF moment, almost the whole episode. It was cringe and boring as hell. Whoa. The story of Cheryl being a sexual addict and also a leper. What the F? For a minute, I thought the writers were going to make Archie have sex with Nana Rose. Me too. Yeah, MVP, Veronica and KJ Appa's acting. LVP, all 4 men who appear in this timeline. Clifford Blossom, the principal, that the effing psychiatrist or psychologist, and Jughead. Best line, I have opinions. I'm detecting a pattern, Jughead. The sexual politics in most of your stories are troubling to say the least.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and here it is from me. There's always a standalone episode, but this one was filler and boring. But I can appreciate the intention to make the episode very comic-like. They had 20 episodes in the last season and spent one on this one. They have a lot of rich content to deal with. Tony and Clay backstory, racism, Kevin and Cheryl accepting themselves as queer people, and so on. Waste of 45 minutes of time, in my opinion. It's a good point. It's a good point.
No, yeah.
To her point, they
sure.
better be getting to those things. If they don't get to those things, I 100% agree. This episode could have been something else, but I did enjoy it as what it was. So,
right.
And then we also have at Sierra N. Gonna preface this by saying I found it really hard to enjoy this episode as it's the final season and yet the plot did not move forward at all. Nothing felt accomplished by the end of the episode and I felt dissatisfied as it was basically a waste of time. Guys,
wow. Are we like lost at sea?
Finally, we're like the ones that like are liking it. Best moment. Veronica calling out Jughead on his misogyny. I'm glad she's not taking his shit and her ending it there, and that was actually really good because his actions had real consequences, and after an episode where nothing happened, it was nice to see some sort of progression. Oh my god, people are gonna hate my hot take on Jughead.
Jeez, seriously.
WTF, everything else. Again, I hated this episode. It was pointless and unnecessary. It's the final season. Why are we talking about whole entire episodes to do absolutely nothing? Makes no sense. MVP Veronica, she was the only enjoyable character this episode out of her and Jughead. It sucks that she's MVP by default this episode because she's easily one of my favorites this season, and I think overall this season she shined way more than past seasons, but yeah, kind of by default this episode. LVP Jughead because his story sucked and wasted my time.
I've been frozen for this entire time.
I know.
While you're
I
watching
can't even look
I'm
at you.
Shocked. I'm like, what the?
I know.
Wow.
Best line.
We missed it.
Best line, I went back to the Melvin that wrote comics and she went back to the beautiful socialite. It sucks that in reality that's all they'll ever be to each other because I do wish we had more time with them, but it's the final season. We gotta keep things going.
Right.
That's it.
Whoa.
Now, wow.
Okay.
I'm like shook. I'm like, should we re-record this podcast and have a different take on it? Because
like started off with like do not come for us, but we really like this episode. I think that like I don't know, maybe it's like a nostalgia thing. Maybe like if you watched like those kinds of things back in the day, like you would appreciate it more. I get what. So two things. I thought about it for a second. With not including like people like Clay, Tony, lesbian storylines, homosexual storylines, there's no way that it would have ended the way that it did with like Jughead getting published by the comic book writers. There's no way it would have happened. Like you're talking about colored people, you're talking about gay people, like not gonna fly. So like I think that was likely one of the choices as to why they decided not to put them in.
But they should have referenced that. They should have been real about that too, right?
They could have, but like I said, like comics were not like they like the Pep comic book boss wouldn't have been like, oh wow, what a great social commentary on racism. Like he's gonna be like, where's the white people? You know what I mean?
But that would have been a really good theme of the episode if he was like, no, like we can't have a black character, and Jughead would be like, but why? Like that's really what happened. He's like, no, change it.
It just
and
becomes
that
something
but then it's
different.
like too big. It's
it just becomes
like
different from like, which they could have, like you said, they could have totally done it, but it wouldn't have been this episode. It would have been like created this way. And secondly, I think that when it comes to the way that like people are not enjoying like it moving forward, I'm like, you just have to like lean in sometimes. Y'all, we've been leaning in for 6 damn years.
I know.
It's sometimes a little challenging to get through these episodes, but I really enjoyed it. I don't know. Same. Give it a rewatch. Maybe everybody go give it a rewatch if you want to give yourself some time while you're doing the dishes or something, and you'll like it more. I don't know. No. I really enjoyed it. Like I can't. I won't be taking that one back. So sorry, listeners.
I won't be taking it back.
I won't be taking it back. Okay.
Oh my god. Okay, guys. I'm excited to hear from everyone tonight when we're watching this live.
For sure. So that is rounding up our final rounding up the episode. I would like to take this time to thank our patrons. We have our Rewinder squad: White, Cliff, Hannah, and Julia. Our lit rewinders: Tina and Kate, and our mommy rewinders: Becca, Sarah, and Tamala.
Thank you guys. If you would like to join our Patreon family, check us out at patreon.com/recap_rewind.
And also make sure you're checking us out on all of our socials: Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. We also got a TikTok now. And also you can find us on all podcasts, everything: Google Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes. Like, subscribe, follow, review, and comment to stay engaged with us at Recap Rewind. Thanks for listening.
Bye.